Welcome to coverage of the finals of Grand Prix Washington, D.C. I'm Brian David Marshall, and we are watching a battle between two Pro Tour champions. On your left, Mike Hron, who's teamed with Matt Severa and Justin Cohen. And on your right, Tom Martell, who's teamed with Ian Spaulding and Richie Hoaen. Both of these players have won a Pro Tour before, as I mentioned. Mike Hron, a while back here, Pro Tour Geneva, and Tom Martell, Pro Tour Gate Crash. These two players participated in a team draft. We watched Rich Hoaen and Mike Hron drafting side by side, and we saw that Mike Hron drafted a blue-white Flyers deck with a fair amount of removal in the form of 3 isolation zones. We did not get a chance to watch Tom Martell draft, so we're going to see what he's up to in a moment. I can tell you that Mike Hron is starting on 6 cards. He mulliganed his opening hand. You see him scrying right now. And he decides to push to the bottom and is underway with an island. So, a little bit of a slow start here, as you are. Oh, but not so fast. There's a McKinley Aeronaut for Tom Martell, who looks like he is white-black allies. Now, third land for Mike Hron, who plays a Shadow Glider. Lays his 4 cards out in front of him and passes the turn back to Tom. Tom is going to play on his third turn another Swamp. And it looks like he's got a Shadow Glider of his own in hand. And he does. And says go. Mike draws for the turn. You know what? He does not play a land. Says go. Now it's Tom's turn to think. He attacks with the Shadow Glider. And it looks like, yep, Mike Hron pushes his Shadow Glider away. He's more than happy to trade. No 4th land for Tom, who plays Alpha Protectors and passes the turn. 4th land for Mike Hron, and there you see Dampening Pulse, which shuts down the offense, as it were, from Tom Martell. The 1-3 and the 1-4 both reduced by 1 in power, so completely ineffectual right now. And that Dampening Pulse was one of the cards that seemed to really push Mike Hron into blue. And you can see it's quite good right here. Okay, turn 5. An Angelic Gift from Tom. Finds him his 4th land. And ships it back to the Pro Tour champion, which would get pretty confusing after a while since they're both Pro Tour champions. There's a Courier Griffin for Mike Hron. So the life scores are 22 for Mike to 20 for Tom Martell. Tom Martell plays Kozlik's Translator. It's been a very slow to develop board for Mike. That's kind of like the way he likes to play Magic. He is, looks like he's going to pass the turn with no play here. Fistful of cards. He's missed a couple of land drops already. Yeah, and he passes the turn back to Tom. Tom is going to his only action is that Kozlik's Translator, but it's reduced in power by 1 from the Dampening Pulse, so it can't even attack into the Courier Griffin successfully. Despite its base 3 power, it's a 2/5 right now. Well, looks like Tom sorting his mana. Yep, 2 black. It's, yeah, Grasp of Darkness. Kill the flyer. Okay, and then attack with the channeler. I mean, with the translator. Searing Light, the translator, which is now 2 power because of the dampening pulse. But Tom has something. He's got Tandem Tactics. So he's going to gain 2 life. He's going to go to 22. Micron's going to fall to 19 from 22. And, yeah. Tom plays a 6th land and then passes the turn back to Mike. All right, no land drop again for Micron, who plays an Ancient Crab, which can hold off that Kozilek's translator. And Tom passes the turn back. Very, very slow-moving game, and Mike just draws his card and passes it back to Tom now. Tom plays another land. Says go. Only 4 lands in play for Mike. 8 lands in play for Tom. There's the 5th land for Mike, but this may come as a surprise to you at this point. Micron is not hurting for lands in hand. He just hasn't been playing them. At this point, he's actually holding 3 lands in hand. He's got a 6-card hand, and 3 of them are lands. He just hasn't had anything to do with those lands. And so, kind of old school Magic, kind of the way I remember being taught how to play limited, that you wanted to keep a couple lands in your hand for removal spells, makes your opponent wonder what you could be holding, gives them, if you have 6 cards in hand, that's a lot more cards for them to think about if you have 1 or 2 cards in hand. So here you see a Core Sky Climber for Micron, who now is going to play his 6th land, and is able to cast Shoulder to Shoulder. So he's going to put a counter on each of his creatures and draw a card for Shoulder to Shoulder. But has no real attack here. Okay. Now, at least one of the cards that Mike's been holding this whole time is Isolation Zone. Hasn't really needed to use it to deal with any of these creatures, so he's while he doesn't really have an offense, he's sitting in a pretty good place defensively. You can start actually maybe flying over with that Core Sky Climber. Okay, here's a Malakir Soothsayer from Tom Martell. So he's going to be able to maybe draw out of this glut of lands he has. But we know that, of course, that Mike has the Isolation Zone. So, in the air with the Core Sky Climber. Attack for 4. Tom is going to take that. Scores 19-18 in Tom Martell's favor. And there's the Isolation Zone. Takes out the Malakir Soothsayer. And still, nothing that Tom can do to get through, even though he has 3 creatures to 1 from Mike Hron, that dampening pulse is really shutting down 2 of them. There's a Core Scythe Master that might be able to let him attack at some point. So again, fly over with the Sky Climber, 19-14 in favor of Mike Hron, who's now plays another Ancient Crab and an Undo War Cleric, although his only ally right now is tapped and attacking, or tapped and attacked, if you will. What does Tom have to deal with that Sky Climber? Well, he's got an Oblivion Strike. And he's going to exile the ally from the game, leaving that poor Undo War Cleric all by himself. And here comes a McKindy Patrol. But really, yeah, even though his creatures are vigilant, there's not a good attack from here. That dampening pulse has done great work for Mike Hron so far. All right, 7th land from Mike Hron says go. And a Cliffhaven Vampire comes down on Tom Martell's side of the board. Pass the turn. By the way, at this point, I think 4 of the 6 cards in Mike Hron's hand are lands. So he's been very, although he's mana flooded, has perhaps done a good job of hiding that. All right, attacks for 1 in the air with the Cliffhaven Vampire, 18-14 in favor of Mike Hron. But that's really all he can do. Okay. All right, Mike is able to... All right, he's able to lock down the vampire with a containment membrane. This is a slog of a game. There's an Evolving Wilds for Tom. But, yeah, he can't do anything. All right, at the end of Mike's turn, we see a second green source show up for Tom as he cracks the Evolving Wilds for a forest. And still no second ally here for Mike, so he could start activating that Undo War Cleric and maybe put this game out of range. All right, there's a Zulaport Chain Mage, and that has plenty of friends to work with here against Mike Hron's life total. That slacker McKindy Aeronaut can finally start contributing to the cause here. All right, here's a Courier Griffin for Mike Hron, so it's 20-14 in favor of Mike. But again, still no ally. And Tom just passes the turn again. So he's going to start going to work with his Chain Mage here. And it looks like Mike is going to pass the turn as well. And yeah, there was a Chain Mage activation at the end of the turn, so it's 18-14 in favor of Mike. And Tom doesn't have anything here. It's been a pretty flooded draw for both of them. It's a little more apparent for Tom, because most of his lands are on his board. There is a Wall of Resurgence. An island becomes a 3/3 creature. And we get another activation of the Chain Mage, so it's 16-14 in favor of Mike. So slowly the Chain Mage is doing its work. And here comes a second Chain Mage for Tom. Is this enough to start taking control of this game without really being able to attack? All right, he passes it back to Mike. Yeah, if he can find an ally, he can sort of keep pace with at least one of those there with his War Cleric, but... All right, he's tapping 5 mana. He plays a Ghostly Sentinel. It's a 3/3 Flying Vigilance. But that Alpha Protector from way back at the beginning of the game with the Angelic Gift on it is going to keep back the 3/3 flyer. Their Chain Mage activation at the end of the turn. So now it's 14-14. Everybody's tied up. Tom starts to tile his creatures. Okay. Here comes a Slaughter Drone. Really, I think the game plan for Tom at this point just has to be Chain Mage. Passes the turn. It looks like something's going to happen at the end of the turn here for Hron. He taps some mana. And he's got Sweep Away. So, you know, normally you might use that card in combat, but it doesn't seem like there's much danger of Tom getting into combat right now. And he really wants to get rid of that Angelic Gift on the Alpha Protector, so he's going to bounce the Protector back to Tom's hand, which will make the gifts fall off. He still has a McKinsey Aeronauts in the air, but that's not going to be quite enough to deal with the Sentinel. It will keep the Courier Griffin at bay, though. All right, another land here for Mike. He plays Karlhelm Guide. He is going to activate Karlhelm Guide, it looks like. Yeah, 5 mana. And he's going to make his Courier Griffin unblockable. And he attacks with Ghostly Sentinel and Courier Griffin. Shows Tom that he's still got a grip full of cards. So that's 5 damage in the air. Yeah, and Tom takes it, scores now 14-9. At the end of the turn, Tar Snare is going to take out the Karlhelm Guide, but it's an ally. So very briefly, there's a little teamwork there. The Under War Cleric gains 2, goes 16-9. But then a couple of Chain Mages get activated, and the score changes down to 12-9 in favor of Hron. All right, Tom taps some mana. What's this play here? Remorseless punishment. Okay. So, Tom says, not as exciting as it could have been much earlier in the game. So now Mike has to think about how he wants to pay for each of these. So there you see he discards 2 lands. Remember, he was holding lands very early in the game, so he discards 2 lands and then sacrifices his Wall of Resurgence to quote-unquote pay for the Remorseless Punishment. And remember, he did not play a land on turn for several turns early in the game, despite having multiple lands in hand. And then, as a result, he now has lands to throw away to Remorseless Punishment. Saved him perhaps saved him some loss of life, or preserved a creature on his board. Interesting. So, Tom's tapped some more mana here. Plays Alpha Protector. It's an ally, so it triggers the McKindy Patrol, so his creatures have vigilance. But says go. Alright. Can Mike outrace 2 Zulaport Chain Mages with his 2 flyers? Tom is able to chump for 1 turn with a McKindy Aeronaut, and he can keep the Courier Griffin at bay for a while with the Aeronaut, but can chump the Sentinel if it becomes necessary. In comes the Sentinel. Up comes the pen. 12-6 is the score. Here comes a Core Sky Climber. That's an ally. That means Ondu War Cleric has a friend. That changes the race pretty dramatically, actually, because as it stood, Mike was taking 4 a turn from these Zulaport Chain Mages, but now can offset that with War Cleric activation, at least one of them. Okay, so when the dust settles and Tom takes his next turn, it's 8-6 in favor of Mike. Tom untaps. By the way, you see that piece of paper to the right of Micron's lands? That's where he's been writing down all of the cards Tom has played. Because normally you want to do stuff like that to keep track of what... I see. So he played an Unknown Shores, I believe. And now it means he can give Death Touch to a Slaughter Drone. Tom announces that he's ready to enter combat. Indicates that he's ready. And says, you know what? I've thought better of this. Do I really want to try to get 1 damage in here? Remember that Dampening Pulse is still making everything a little smaller. Okay. So another Alpha Protector for Tom Martell. And Mike can gain 2 here at the end of the turn with the War Clerk. He can go 10-6. See, they're starting to count things up, trying to figure out this looks like in terms of a race. Okay, he did attack with the slaughter drone. Sorry, after the off, it was vigilant because of the off protector, and Mike puts the island in front of it, says give it death touch, that's fine. Now he goes to the end of the turn. Gain 2 life, 10-6 Micron, who's representing 3 flyers in the air right now against the McKindy Aeronauts. Okay. Draws for his turn. You see Tom, I talked about Mike writing down all the cards that his opponent played so that, he can also report to his teammates like, oh yeah, no, he had this, 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 and this, in case you're worried about it. And Tom decides to take a look through Mike's graveyard so he can sort of give the same scouting report to his teammates just so they can know where certain cards ended up. So, all right, Mike attacks with Ghostly Sentinel. Oh, wow. Attacks with Ghostly Sentinel, Courier Griffin, and Core Sky Climber. And then after combat, plays Adverse Conditions to tap down a Zulaport Chain Mage and a Flyer. So Tom taps the Zulaport Chain Mage in response, so it goes 8-6. Uh, 8-6 in favor of Micron. Is that a Dazzling Reflection? It is. So Dazzling Reflection on the Ghostly Sentinel. So Tom's going to gain 3 life. Mike's going to lose a life because of the Cliffhaven Vampire. So now it's 7-9. So suddenly the life totals have swung around a little bit in favor of Tom. But, there's still 5 damage in the air coming in. So now it was very brief. And it's 7-4 in favor of Micron. Who then plays a second Isolation Zone to take down a Zulaport Chain Mage. And in response, Tom drains him down to 5 with the Chain Mage. So it's 5-4 in favor of Micron, who has an Air Force that Tom can't really deal with. So he is looking at the board. I think this is going to be it. Yes! Tom picks up his cards. Meanwhile, while this game was playing out, I can tell you that Justin Cohen went up 1 game on Rich Hoaen, and Matt Severa went up 1 game on Ian Spaulding. So the Micron team up 1 game all the way across the board at this point in the finals of Grand Prix Washington, D.C. All right, this is game 2 of the finals of Grand Prix Washington, D.C. in the matchup between Micron and Tom Martell. Micron is up 1 game to nothing. And Tom Martell has chosen to draw here. And Micron who had a very slow start in game 1, comes out of the gate pretty quickly with an Ondu War Cleric. Tom matches him with a Slaughter Drone. And then a Core Sky Climber joins. It's a 3rd land for Tom. He attacks with the Slaughter Drone. No blocks from Micron. He goes down to 18. He's going to recoup that pretty quickly. Goes back up to 20 with the Core Sky Climber tapping alongside the Ondu War Cleric. I know you didn't see it happen, but trust me, it happened. In for 5 come the allies. And Searing Light on the Ondu War Cleric. Wow, Gideon's Reproach on the Core Sky Climber. Tom makes pretty quick work of Micron's army here. And then Mike plays a Shadow Glider. In comes the Slaughter Drone. And Mike falls to 18. It's 18-20 in favor of Tom Martell. And down comes Zulaport Chain Mage. Comes a Core Sky Climber. Mike not found a 4th land in this game. Doesn't look like he has. He attacks with the Shadow Glider. Passes the turn back. And it is 18-18. All right, there we see. Oh. So now we see what the green is for in Tom's deck. He casts Nissa's Judgment. Puts a counter on the Chain Mage and the Slaughter Drone. Takes down the Core Sky Climber. And he slams in for 8. Very quickly, half of Micron's life is gone. It's 10-18 in favor of Tom Martell. Micron basically puts a counter on his Shadow Glider with shoulder to shoulder. He doesn't have a second target. And passes the turn. Tom's got Oblivion Strike for the Shadow Glider. He's going to drop Micron to 2 here. So 2-18 says go. Mike draws for the turn. And wow, that was a quick game 2. Tom wins pretty handily there. Nissa's Judgment, pretty backbreaking in terms of clearing the board and accelerating the clock. So we're all even here at 1 game apiece in the match between Micron and Tom Martell. Okay, here is Game 3 of the finals of Grand Prix Washington, D.C. between Tom Martell and Micron. Tom Martell's mulliganed down to 5 cards. Micron kept a hand with 4 blue cards and 3 plains. He asked his teammate, Matt Severa, what should I do? And he's like, I don't know, I'd mulligan that. And Micron said, I'll keep. Tom Martell is on the play. So Micron also chose to draw, by the way. And so we see a turn 2 Evolving Wilds from Tom Martell. A turn 2 Coral Guide from Micron on the draw. All right, there's a forest at the end of Mike's turn with the Evolving Wilds. Remember, Tom was on 5 on the play here. Here's an Alpha Protector. That should be able to hold that Coral Guide at bay. 3rd land, that's all the play. Oh, yeah, the island did show up, of course, last turn for Micron. He snickered a little about it. See him crossing off cards. No 4th land for Tom Martell. And Mike goes straight to 4. And one of the cards he kept in that opening hand was a Cloud Manta, and I imagine he'll be playing that. Yep, there it is. 3/2 flyer for 4 mana. I think he was expecting the Tar Snare there. You see, he kept his hand on it. He was like, oh, really? That lives? Awesome. No 4th land for Tom. Not the way anyone wants this match to end. We saw a lot of white combat tricks, white removal spells from Tom in Game 2, including Gideon's Reproach. Does he have Gideon's Reproach here for the Cloud Manta? Looks like he's got something. Taps a green, Vines of the Recluse. Wow. Vines of the Recluse is going to give +1/+2 to his to his 1/4. It's going to give it reach. That's the important thing, and the one extra point of power. He eats the Cloud Manta. Here comes a Shadow Glider. Wow. What does Tom have here? He's been stuck on 3 lands. There's land number 4. He attacks with his Alpha Protector, and 18-20 in favor of Tom Martell. He plays Zulaport Chain Mage. All right. Now, what is Mike Hron going to do? His time here, looking at his hand, conferring with his teammates. He's also looking at his teammates' match that's, going on. Ian Spaulding has been climbing back into the next game with a Kalitas. And Matt Severa has had a lot of tough decisions to make. So one of the things that happens a lot in team is that you take a little time off of your game to help your teammate in a tough situation. With the board, you see before shoulder to shoulder from Mike Hron. Before he even announced the spell, as soon as he tapped the mana, you saw Tom Martell reaching for 2 dice to put on his creatures. He kind of saw what was going on there. So now we have a 3/3 flyer and a 3/2 ally. That has a pretty relevant ability once we get to 5 mana. Again, Mike is not really debating his attack step here, which is fly over for 3. And now it is 18-17 in Tom's favor. And Mike's favor. And then he has, for 1 blue, he's able to play Containment Membrane on the Zulaport Chain Mage. Even though it's not tapped now, if Tom had wanted to use it right there to take 2 life away from Mike, it would have stayed tapped for the rest of the game. So chooses not to do it. He does attack for 1 with the Alpha Protector, and it is 17-17. And another Chain Mage comes down for Tom Martell. Tom going to pull back into this from 5 cards. All right. 17-14 in favor of Mike after the attack from the 3/3 Shadow Glider. And now, again, conferring with teammates. His teammates' decisions are much harder than his decisions at this point, so that's what's taking so long here. Not that Mike is a super fast player to begin with. He's very deliberate, but that's what's going on. There's a Core Sky Climber. Taps to leave a white open. All right, Tom Martell taps 5 mana. And plays, one of a card he's obviously brought in out of his sideboard. Okay. Passes the turn. Back. And 17-11 after the attack from the Shadow Glider. There's a Wall of Resurgence. Plains becomes a 3/3. Okay, activate the Zulaport Chain Mage. It's going to be 15-11. All right. So now, Tom. It's landfall trigger. Attacks for 4. Attacks for 5, sorry. +2/+2 from the landfall trigger. Attacks for 5. Any blocks for Mike? Does he want to put his wall in the way? Does he want to... Looks like... Yeah, he's picking up his pen. He's going to take it. It's 10-11 now in favor of Tom Martell. Brought in his little Stoneforge as well. Not another card that's not in his main deck. All right. So Hron can attack for 6 in the air this turn. If he puts his Sky Climber up in the air. Also has the option of making something unblockable with the Coralhelm Guide. Can't do both. Looks like he is leaning towards the Sky Climber right now. All right. 2 mana. All right, jump my Sky Climber. Swing for 6. Tom Martell has Grasp of Darkness. He has to use an Unknown Shores to pay for it. And he targets the Sky Climber. But Hron has the negate. I think that was like an 11th or 12th pick negate. Wow. Goes 10-5. He's able to come down, bring it to 8-5 with a Chain Mage at the end of the turn. Tom draws. That was his last card, that Grasp of Darkness. Draws his card for the turn. He needs to find some way to deal with those flying creatures here. Passes, says go. Mike draws for the turn, plays a land. He can actually fly and make something unblockable if he wanted this turn. It's 8-5. But instead just says fly, jumps in the air, attacks, and Tom extends the hand. Mike Hron wins the match 2-1, and at the next table, Matt Severa would overcome the threat of Kalitas with an inverter of truth, and he would win his match 2-0, and also Justin Cohen would ultimately win his match against Rich Hoaen, and 3-0 for the Mike Hron-led team, and they are your Grand Prix DC champions.